The modern 1% are obsessed with living forever, so as to enjoy their riches and wealth for as long as they possibly can. Most famously, we have Brian Johnson, who spends millions a year to stay young. Hollywood actors go through crazy plastic surgery and miracle drugs in order to maximize their youth. And so did the Chinese emperors of old. On at least 6 occasions, Chinese emperors lost their lives in the pursuit of immortality. It turns out that these elixirs the emperors were taking were the very things that killed them. Unfortunate. Alchemists, in all their wisdom, operated a lot like me making mixed drinks for my buddies back in college. Just mix whatever the coolest stuff we have on hand and call it a day. Now, the Chinese Jack and Coke of the time was mercury and cinnabar. We all know mercury, the really cool liquid metal that slides around and is super poisonous and definitely toxic to you, and you should not have it. But what is cinnabar? What could that possibly be? Why, it's mercury, of course. That's right. It's this red mineral that's a mixture of mercury and sulfur, specifically called mercury sulfide. And even more fun fact, it was ground up into a powdery pigment called vermilion. So look out, Vermilion City. You're incredibly toxic and linked to the deaths of numerous Chinese emperors. So eventually, after watching emperors and alchemists continue to drop dead after imbibing the forbidden chug jugs, the practice of immortality elixirs fell out of popularity. Funny how that happens. It instead sort of pivoted into this cool internal alchemy, whereby conditioning yourself, fasting, eating a certain diet, you would, in theory, begin to make an immortality elixir inside your body, slowly condensing the right chemicals and substances to make you immortal. This is accompanied by swirling red mists, strange lights, and your bones turning into gold. Awesome. In the 1,000 or so years since the Tang emperors died of immortality, man has not stopped chasing the dream of living forever. But now, instead of miracle drugs, we have miracle drugs. Modern alchemists, now called scientists, have developed new medicines to make the body healthier. The most famous of the past decade or so has been Ozempic, more generally known as GLP-1s, a revolutionary weight loss and diabetes drug whose long-term side effects, frankly, we don't know a whole lot about what happens long-term. Now, GLP-1s have much more oversight than the real modern equivalent of Chinese immortality elixirs, peptides. Peptides, as any introductory biology class will tell you, are simply amino acids, the fundamental building blocks of proteins. They get folded around in cool patterns, and they make proteins. And as everyone knows, the past few years, protein! Need your protein, need to have your protein. And wouldn't you know it, GLP-1s are also peptides themselves. But the Ozempic craze has really led to this entire peptide gray market. There is a peptide for everything and anything you could possibly want. Hair growth, preventing hair loss, stamina, testosterone, making the thing that makes testosterone, muscle gain, skin tightness, fertility, intelligence, good sleep. You name it, there is a peptide being marketed for it. The other thing that I found that's really funny in the parallel between immortality elixirs is the source. Many of the people slinging and injecting gray market peptides get them sourced from, drumroll please, Chinese labs. Yeah, we haven't stopped making Chinese immortality elixirs. Now we just call them peptides. And that's really fun and the entire premise of the video. So yeah, Chinese medical labs synthesize a lot of these random peptides and then they get shipped over to the US. And since the peptides are labeled as lab materials, they're not exactly FDA approved or have any sort of oversight with the FDA at all because they're lab materials. They're just chemicals. What you do with them, you're supposed to experiment, but not on yourself. And that's where we get to this point. All these gentlemen are buying peptides. They're obviously clearly just doing biological experiments. Your Honor, it's not for muscle growth and getting absolutely jacked. It is, though. That's what they're doing, trust me. Because there are literally zero regulations regarding peptides, users experience differences in dosage, different chemicals altogether, and which can lead to some insane side effects.
I barely ate anything. Like I was throwing up every day. I pooped my pants twice in one weekend in public. But haven't we all?
But haven't we all?
Now, nobody has died that I have found. Whatever the Silicon Valley private equity emperors think is the next key to immortality, that's what everyone's gonna try. Now, we've come a long way from mercury and cinnabar, but have we though? We really haven't come that far at all. We're still doing Chinese immortality elixirs, this time in the form of weird amino acids that people just say do stuff. And then maybe they do that stuff, maybe they don't. Man is always going to be chasing after the next miracle elixir that can extend his life, regardless of the potential long-term consequences. Or you can always raw dog life and meditate so hard your bones turn into gold. That is always on the table, guys. Anyways, this video is brought to you by the lovely people on Patreon. They keep the lights on, and you can go join them to support great videos like this. I talk about anything and everything. I'm a freak, and that's what you pay for. So yeah. Also, if you like this video, like it. If you subscribe it. I talk about all kinds of funny, goofy stuff, and that's the whole point. That's what you're here for. So, hope you liked it. Don't do peptides unless you know what you're doing. You're your own person. Inject whatever you want. Have a good one. Sarange. Sarangeo.